I always believed my mother had died when I was just a baby. That's what my father, Thomas, told me. That's what the pictures and stories confirmed. A tragic accident. A car crash. No survivors except me, the miracle baby, as my dad used to say with a forced smile. But the older I got, the more questions I had. Why were there so few pictures of her? Why did Dad flinch every time I brought her up? And why did Grandma Evelyn, his mother, once slip and say, "Your real mom would have been proud of you"? Real mom? I was only 14 then, but her words haunted me for years. By the time I turned 18, I had to know the truth. Quietly, I started digging. I searched through old drawers, attic boxes, anything that looked like it might hold secrets. That's when I found the photo that changed everything. It was tucked inside an old book, behind a stack of dusty receipts. A woman I had never seen before stood next to my father. She had kind, tired eyes. Eyes that looked like mine. She was holding a baby. Me. On the back, it said in shaky handwriting, "Rebecca and baby Sarah, March 2007. Rebecca? She wasn't the woman in the photos Dad told me was my mother. That woman had blonde hair and sharp features. This woman was softer, warmer. And clearly real. I confronted my dad that night. I waited until he finished his usual evening scotch and sat in his recliner. "Who is Rebecca?" I asked, holding up the photo. His eyes locked on the image. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he looked at me, his face pale. "She wasn't good for you," he said. "She left. She didn't want to be your mother." But something in his voice felt rehearsed. Like he'd practiced those lines for years. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the photo under my lamp until sunrise. I knew one thing. He lied. And I was going to find the truth. Even if it destroyed everything. The next morning, I skipped class and took the bus to Grandma Evelyn's house. She lived in the same cottage she'd had since the 70s, surrounded by wildflowers and worn-out wind chimes. I knew she wouldn't lie to me, not the way Dad did. She opened the door, surprised to see me so early. "Sarah? Are you all right?" I handed her the photo. Her lips trembled. "Where did you find this?" she whispered. "In Dad's attic," I said. "Grandma, who is she? Is she my real mother?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she sat down slowly on the floral couch and motioned for me to join her. The house smelled like cinnamon and dust. "She's your mother," Evelyn finally said. "Your real mother. Rebecca." I felt my throat tighten. "But Dad said she left me. That she didn't want to be my mom." Evelyn looked down, tears pooling in her eyes. "That's not true. Thomas, he was always controlling. He and Rebecca fought constantly. When you were born, she wanted to leave him, but she didn't want to leave you. She tried to fight for custody." "What happened?" "She disappeared," she whispered. "One day, she just vanished. No note. No calls. No trace." I stared at her in disbelief. "You think he did something to her?" She shook her head. "I don't know, sweetheart. But I never believed she left willingly. Not with how much she loved you." My heart pounded. My father had built our entire life on this lie. But if Rebecca didn't leave, then where was she? I needed answers. And I needed help. That night, I contacted someone I found online, Jack Carson, a private investigator who specialized in missing persons. I sent him everything I had, the photo, the date, the names. He called me back the next morning. His voice was steady, professional. But his words gave me chills. "I'll take your case. But if your father's been hiding this for 18 years, then there's a reason. And it might be a dangerous one." Jack Carson met me at a quiet cafe on the east side of town. He was older than I expected, maybe in his mid-40s, with graying hair, a worn leather jacket, and eyes that had clearly seen too much. He slid into the booth across from me and laid down a small notebook. "I've done some preliminary digging," he said. "Rebecca Langley, your mother, was last seen 18 years ago at a gas station on Route 47, 2 days after she filed for emergency custody of you." I froze. "She filed for custody?" He nodded. "It was sealed, but I got the records. She claimed your father had become aggressive. That he controlled everything from her finances to her phone. She was afraid for you." A lump formed in my throat. She never showed up to the next court date, Jack continued. And that's when she was officially declared missing. He paused, leaning forward. I also found something else. Rebecca was staying with a friend the week she disappeared. A woman named Natalie Brooks. Still lives in the area. You want to go see her? I nodded. We drove out that afternoon. Natalie lived in a small, weathered house at the edge of town. She opened the door cautiously at first, until I told her who I was. You're Sarah, she whispered, eyes welling with tears. God, you look just like her. She invited us in and made tea, hands trembling slightly as she stirred sugar into her cup. She was terrified, Natalie said. Thomas had started following her, showing up at my house, calling from blocked numbers. The night before she disappeared, she told me she thought someone was watching her. Did she say where she was going? She wouldn't tell me. Just said she had one last thing to do before she got Sarah back. My hands were cold, numb. And then, she never came back. I thought maybe she ran. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. Jack leaned in. Did she leave anything behind? Notes, journals, anything? Natalie hesitated, then got up. She returned with a small metal tin. Inside were photos, receipts, scribbled notes, pieces of Rebecca's life. I sifted through them, then froze. A letter. Addressed to me. To my little girl, if you ever find this. I started to shake. Jack touched my shoulder. Take your time. I opened the letter slowly. The ink was faded, but the words hit me like a punch to the chest. Sarah, if you're reading this, then maybe the truth has finally come out. I never wanted to leave you. I fought for you. But I was scared. Not of motherhood, but of the man I once loved. Thomas is not who he pretends to be. If I disappear, promise me you'll never stop asking questions. Find the truth. No matter what it costs. I love you always. Mom, asterisk asterisk. I stared at the words until they blurred through my tears. My mother hadn't left me. She was taken from me. I couldn't stop rereading the letter. Every word felt like a whisper from the past, like my mother was reaching through time, begging me not to give up. And I wouldn't. I couldn't. That night, I didn't go home. I stayed with Jack at his office, where he had a small guest couch and folders stacked high with missing persons cases. I sat there in silence, Rebecca's letter clenched in my hands, while Jack made phone calls. By morning, he had something. There's one thing I haven't told you yet, he said. When someone vanishes like your mom did, the first 48 hours are everything. After that, trails go cold. But sometimes, they get buried on purpose. I looked up. Buried by who? Jack hesitated. People who benefit from the disappearance. He slid a document across the desk. It was a bank record. From the same week Rebecca vanished. A deposit, $10,000, into a new account under your father's name. It's from a closed company, Jack said. A shell corporation. No clear owner. But this sort of payment? It smells like a payoff. Are you saying my dad paid someone to make her disappear? I'm saying, it's not out of the question. I stood up, heart pounding. We need to confront him. Jack put a hand on my arm. Not yet. If we move too fast, he could shut down. Or worse. But I couldn't wait. I left the office and went straight home. When I walked in, Dad was in the kitchen, sipping coffee like nothing had changed. Where were you last night? He asked, not looking up. I held out the letter. He froze mid-sip. Where did you get that? He asked, voice shaking. From Natalie. Mom's friend. She kept everything your lies didn't destroy. His face hardened. You're being dramatic. She wrote me this. She said you're not who you pretend to be. That you. Enough, he barked, slamming his mug on the counter. The sound echoed through the house. You want to know the truth? He said, voice low. Fine. Your mother was unstable. She was depressed. She threatened to take you and disappear. I couldn't let that happen. So what did you do? I asked, voice trembling. What did you do to her? He stared at me. And for the first time in my life, I saw it, something dark in his eyes. I protected you, he said coldly. That's all you need to know. Then he walked out. And I stood there, shaking. Because in that moment, I realized something terrifying. My father didn't just lie about my mother. He may have destroyed her. And now he knew I knew. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like a warning. Every shadow in the hallway felt like it was watching me. I locked my bedroom door for the first time in my life. And still, I didn't feel safe. What scared me most wasn't what I knew. It was what I didn't. What was my father capable of? What had he already done? I called Jack at 3 a.m. He picked up on the second ring. He knows I found the letter, I whispered. He didn't deny anything. He just said he protected me. There was a long pause. I think it's time we talk to someone who never got a chance to speak, Jack said. Your mom's attorney. The next morning, we met with Angela Dawson, the woman who had represented Rebecca in her custody filing. She was retired now, living in a quiet neighborhood with her golden retriever and walls lined with old legal books. I sat across from her, my fingers trembling as I showed her the letter. Angela's face fell. I always knew something was off, she said. Rebecca was scared. She came into my office crying, said she had recordings, proof that Thomas had threatened her. But before she could give them to me, she vanished. Recordings? I asked. Where? Angela thought for a moment. She mentioned keeping copies in case something happened to her. She didn't trust anyone, not even me. But she said one was hidden in something that could never be thrown away. What does that mean? Angela smiled sadly. Knowing Rebecca, probably something sentimental. A toy. A book. A photo frame. I suddenly remembered a wooden music box. It had sat on the shelf in my room for as long as I could remember. I thought it was a gift from my grandmother. But what if it wasn't? I raced home. My dad was gone, his car missing from the driveway. I locked the door behind me and ran upstairs, pulling the music box from the shelf. It looked ordinary. Faded white paint, tiny ballerina inside. I opened the lid. Music played, soft and familiar. I tipped it upside down, shook it. Nothing. Then I noticed something strange. The velvet bottom was loose. I peeled it back, hands shaking, and there it was. A tiny cassette tape. Labeled in my mother's handwriting. Thomas. March 2007. I stared at it for a full minute, unable to breathe. This was it. This could be proof that he threatened her. That he meant to make her disappear. I texted Jack immediately. I found it. The recording. Meet me now. But before I could even grab my keys, I heard the front door unlock. Dad was home. And I was holding a tape he thought was gone forever. The key turned in the front door like a gun cocking. My hands were slick with sweat. I shoved the cassette into my bag and closed the music box just as my father walked in. He looked normal. Grocery bags in hand. Whistling faintly. But I knew better now. Hey, kiddo, he said. You're home early. I nodded. Didn't feel great. He paused in the kitchen doorway, eyes narrowing ever so slightly. He was watching me. Measuring. And I knew, asterisk asterisk, he sensed something. Asterisk asterisk. I forced a smile. Just gonna lie down for a bit. He didn't move. You've been quiet lately, he said slowly. Is everything okay? I gripped the strap of my bag tighter. Yeah, just tired. A long silence stretched between us. Then he smiled. That same warm, practiced smile I'd seen my whole life. All right, get some rest. I turned to go upstairs, heart hammering against my ribs. And as I reached the top step, I heard it. The softest sound of a door locking. He was sealing the front door behind me. Like I was his prisoner. I didn't wait. I opened my bedroom window, climbed out onto the porch roof, and jumped. Scraped my arm. Twisted my ankle. But I ran anyway. I met Jack in his car 2 blocks away. He didn't ask what happened. He just hit play on the portable cassette player. And we listened. Rebecca's voice filled the car. Shaky at first. Then stronger. Thomas, I'm recording this because I don't trust you anymore. You said if I left, I'd regret it. That I'd never see Sarah again. You said you had friends who could make problems disappear. I don't know if you're serious or just trying to scare me. But if something happens to me, this is why. There was a pause. Then, I love our daughter. I will never stop fighting for her. But if I vanish, if I'm gone, asterisk asterisk, he did it. Asterisk asterisk. Silence. I stared at Jack. He looked stunned. This is it, he said. This is enough to open a case. Maybe even a criminal one. I wanted to feel relief. But all I felt was cold. Because the last word on that tape, he did it, wasn't just a cry for justice. It was a death sentence. And my father might have killed my mother. The next morning, Jack and I went straight to the police station. We handed over the cassette and a written statement. The detective on duty, Detective Mason, listened quietly, nodding as the tape played. When it ended, he looked up. Expression unreadable. "This is serious," he said. "If what you're saying is true and this tape is authentic, we can reopen the case." I exhaled. Finally, something was happening. But then he added, "It'll take time. These things don't move fast." Time? My father was dangerous. He already knew I was onto him. And every second that passed gave him a chance to cover his tracks. Still, we left the station with a small spark of hope. That evening, Jack dropped me off at a safe place, a motel under his name. He insisted I not go home. I didn't argue. I sat on the bed for hours, watching the motel ceiling fan spin in slow, hypnotic circles. My mind replayed the tape over and over. If I vanish, he did it. I thought about what my mother must have felt, recording that. The fear. The heartbreak. The hope that somehow, someday, I would find it. I almost fell asleep. Until Jack called. His voice was sharp. Urgent. "Sarah, stay inside. Lock the door." "What's going on?" "I just got a call from someone I trust in the department. Your father was tipped off. He knows we went to the police." My blood turned to ice. "How?" Jack hesitated. "That's the thing. Mason, Detective Mason, he's known your dad for years. Apparently, they used to work out at the same club. Your dad made donations to some community programs Mason's wife runs." My heart sank. "Are you saying Mason's dirty?" "I'm saying be careful. Because this case? It just got political." I hung up, pulled the curtain shut, and slid a chair under the doorknob. Suddenly, a knock. Soft. Measured. I froze. Another knock. Louder this time. I crept toward the door and peered through the peephole. No one. I waited, barely breathing. Then, under the door, something slid in. A note. I picked it up with shaking hands. Scrawled in red ink were just 4 words. "You should stop digging." I stumbled back, heart pounding. He knew where I was. He was watching me. And he wanted me to be afraid. But I wasn't going to stop. I was going to expose everything. Even if it killed me. The motel room felt smaller with every hour. I barely slept. My phone kept lighting up with blocked calls. I didn't answer. I was too afraid of hearing his voice. But I wasn't alone. Jack was working nonstop, digging deeper into Thomas's past, his business connections, financial records, people he paid off, manipulated, or silenced. And that's when he found her. A woman named Marissa Blake, who once worked at a women's shelter in a neighboring county. She recognized Rebecca's photo. We met Marissa at a quiet park near her apartment. She was in her late 50s, soft-spoken, with sharp eyes that scanned everyone who walked past us. "I remember her," she said, tapping the photo gently. "She came to the shelter one night. Bruises on her arms. Said she was running from someone." "Did she give a name?" I asked, leaning forward. Marissa shook her head. "No. She used the alias Lena. But she had a daughter," she said. "And she cried when she mentioned her. She said she'd been separated, forced to leave her behind." My breath caught in my throat. She said she was going to try and go underground, stay off the grid. She was scared. Really scared. But strong. "Did she leave anything behind?" Jack asked. Marissa nodded. "A notebook. I keep things like that in case someone comes looking." An hour later, we were back in Jack's car. In my hands was a thin, battered spiral-bound notebook. The first few pages were sketches. Doodles. Lyrics. But then I turned a page and saw it. "If I'm ever found, let her know I never stopped loving her. Sarah, my brave girl, this is all for you. Maybe one day, this pain will lead you to the truth." My throat tightened. I traced the ink with my fingers. It was her. Her writing. Her thoughts. She was real. She was alive, Asterisk asterisk, after she vanished asterisk asterisk. I looked at Jack. This means she might still be out there, doesn't it? Jack nodded slowly. It changes everything. And just as he said that, his phone buzzed. He answered. His face went pale. What is it? I asked. He covered the speaker. Whispered. Your father just filed a missing person report. For you. I blinked. What? He's telling the police you've run away. That you've been unstable. Paranoid. That you're a danger to yourself. My hand shook. He's flipping the script, Jack said. If he can make you look unstable, then everything you say about him becomes unreliable. He's trying to erase me, I whispered. Jack looked me dead in the eye. Then we have to find your mom before he does. Jack and I worked through the night. Marissa's notebook held more than words, sketches of places, names scrawled in margins, and an address tucked between the pages. 135, Willow Lane. It was a small house on the edge of town, one I had never visited. The next morning, I stood before the worn gate, heart pounding. The house was run down, windows boarded up, but something told me this was the place. I pushed open the creaking door. Inside, dust danced in shafts of sunlight. And on the kitchen table lay a box, sealed with a faded ribbon. I opened it carefully. Inside were letters, photos, and a small leather-bound journal. Flipping through the journal, I found my mother's handwriting again. If you find this, Sarah, know that I never stopped watching over you, even when I had to be far away. I made this my home for a while, the only place where I could breathe. Tears welled up. I heard footsteps behind me. Dad. Thomas stood in the doorway, face pale, but eyes burning with rage. I warned you to stop, he said, voice low. I held the journal tight. No. I'm done hiding. He stepped forward. You don't know what you're messing with. But I was ready. Because now I had proof. Proof that he lied, that he hurt my mother, and that I wasn't alone. This was only the beginning. And as the sun set over Willow Lane, I realized one thing clearly. I would fight. No matter the cost. Even if it meant facing the darkest parts of my own family. Thomas lunged toward me, but I was faster. With trembling hands, I grabbed my phone and hit record. I'm done being your victim, I said, voice shaking but firm. Everyone will know what you did. He snarled, stepping back. I protected you from her, he spat. She was unstable, dangerous. You should be grateful. Grateful for lies? For taking my mother away? For trying to erase me? I shouted. Tears streamed down my face. I have proof. Recordings. Letters. Witnesses. This ends tonight. His face twisted in rage. You don't know who you're dealing with. I stood my ground. Suddenly, police sirens wailed outside. Jack had called them when I left the house earlier. Thomas looked around, panic flashing in his eyes. Stay away from me, he shouted, backing into the shadows. The officers burst in moments later. I handed them my phone. Detective Mason looked grim as he took the evidence. Ms. Carter, you did the right thing. For the first time in years, I felt free. My mother's voice, her words, had led me through the darkness. And now I was finally ready to step into the light. Months later, Thomas was arrested and charged. Rebecca's name was cleared. And I began to rebuild my life, stronger, wiser, and no longer alone. This was my story, my truth. And I was ready to share it with the world. Like and follow if you like family dramatic stories. Bye-bye.